Hi there, I'm Rebecca and a really warm welcome back to my channel PumpkinBecki. In this week's video we are taking advantage of the late winter period and we're going to be planting up a tiered fairy garden using two of these beautiful brown polystone planters. Let's get started. Since I've done a two-part video, but I think there's so much I need to cover in this that I may have to split this. So we'll do the hard landscaping in one video and then we'll do the soft landscaping as far as is possible in the second video. So this week we're going to look at what we're going to start with, what our structure is. These polystone bowls are from a company called Primrose and they are on the internet. And this is the large bowl and this is the small bowl. They're on sale, well they were when I bought them. This one was $7.99 when I bought it. The word polystone confused me a bit. I thought it was going to be a lot more plasticky than it is. It's actually more like a lovely ceramic. So polystone is essentially ground up stone which is then bonded back together in resin. I've gone for two different sizes so I can have this sort of stepped feel but also a size difference, and they come completely solid, so I have drilled a hole in each of them. Just like with any other planter, we are going to put in some crock to aid with drainage. It just helps prevent the hole from getting clogged up with earth as water goes through it. These are going to be outdoor planters, these are frost-proof. Now I'm going to add in the compost. I have gone for a mixture of peat-free multi-purpose compost, topsoil, perlite, and there's some grit in here too. Think very hard about the sort of plants you're planting and the sort of soil environment that they need. The next thing I'm going to do is show you what I've been making. Now, what you may or may not know about me is that I am a very creative person. I love creating. I'm always thinking about my next project, and Fairy Gardens is very definitely an extension of that. It incorporates my love of gardening and my love of crafting and miniatures and all those lovely good things. When I made George's fairy garden, you saw that I used pre-bought things in my broken pot video, in my terrarium videos, all these things that I've used pre-bought, pre-made items. But with this garden I thought I want to flex my creative muscle a little bit and try and make some things for the garden. And here's the first of them. This is a wirework arbor. And I've literally made this from bronze plated copper wire. I've given it some really decently long legs so I can securely push it down into the soil surface of the garden, and it shouldn't move or be dislodged by birds. Let's talk a little bit about scale. In doll's house making there are two main scales. One is 1/12 scale, that's the kind of general one that is used, the most popular, and there is 1/24 scale. 1/12 scale means that with every, sorry we're going imperial here, with every implied foot of distance or height, that will measure in life 1 inch. Okay, so 1 inch equals 1 foot. I've made this in 1/24 scale, so for every foot of implied height, it takes ½ inch. So as I was making this, I've allowed 7 implied feet from what will be the soil level to the top of the arch here, so that somebody could pass very happily through there. As this implies 7 feet here to here, this thing measures about 3½ inches. I've also made myself this adorable folding screen, and it means I can use it in lots of different ways. It can be the backdrop to a seat, it can be the backdrop to a border where there isn't a tall tree or something. Think of how you would use these elements in your own garden to create some degree of separation. I can zigzag it, I can curve it, I can keep it straight. Lots of options with this. And this one's coming in at about 6 implied feet. I drew these out on paper first, using a ruler to just keep check of my scale. I made some of the elements first, laying them over my paper diagram, just again to make sure it was all going to fit together. There's a little bit of sort of bodge wire work going on, just to hold it all together, because this is all just woven wire. There's no soldering, it's just bending angles with pliers and weaving different gauges of wire. So the main outer structure of everything is in 1.25mm wire. I've also got 0.4mm, 0.6mm, and that's probably 1mm, I think, central shape. And you can see here that I have made the support legs basically the same height as the screen above. That's going to make it really super secure in the soil. The centre panel doesn't have any legs at all, but both the M ones do. You could make this as long as you wanted. I mean, crikey, it took quite a bit of wire, a long time, and my fingers were quite sore by the end of it, even though I was using pliers. But you could make 5 panels, 6 panels. You could have some panels that weren't quite so decorative. You could make them more decorative. The options are limitless. And I really love the texture and the different lighting effects that you get by incorporating wire into things. I love it when I make my jewellery, and I've really enjoyed using it for these miniatures as well. I've also made my own, it's a bit higgledy-piggledy at the moment, but once it goes in the garden it'll be fine, coffee stirrer fence. These were a really fun shape. They had a kind of notch cut out from the ends, so I've managed to just use a piece from each end of the coffee stirrer. That leaves me the chunk in the middle I can do something else with. And I've used that same wire. This is the 0.6, and you can see I've just twisted it between each piece. I've also put some extra wood graining onto the wood. You don't need to do that. I have varnished it. You don't need to do that. I've added a bit of glitter. You don't need to do that. You can go as far or as natural as you like. I wanted this to just look like it had a little glistening of, I don't know, fairy sparkle or frost or something. I've also given myself one long drink stirrer, which I have similarly textured with pen, and that will push down into the garden. And where I was twisting the wire, I have left myself some tails. That means that I can probably just sort of affix it to something else in the garden, or push it down into the soil, wrap it around something. Gives me options, and the fact that I've got two tails means I can secure it quite well. Now here comes the biggest project. This took the whole of last weekend, apart from when I was filming and uploading my other video. What do you think? I'm so proud of this. The door is a bought item. In fact, it was sent to me for free because I received another fairy door that came damaged, and I liked it, but I wasn't going to use it on its own, and I wanted to put it in a fairy garden setting. I didn't want to, I don't know, stick it onto one of my walls or one of my wooden structures here in the garden. I wanted to make it part of something, and I felt like if you just stick a fairy door in a garden, in a fairy garden that is, it's going to look a bit lost, and it needed something around it to make it feel like it was part of a fairy house. So again, with a bit of paper and a bit of planning, I came up with this, and it's meant to just be the suggestion of a cottage, maybe like a little additional bit that's been tacked on to the side of a cottage. You know how cottages sort of grow as they just sort of get extended a little bit here, a little bit there. So this is just meant to be a suggestion of the cottage beyond, so that when it's got plants around it, you'll get that sense. I've made it from polymer clay. I'll show you around the back. This is the not so pretty bit. I've used 0.3mm thick steel. I think it was steel anyway. And I cut myself nice, easy pieces. So each section is completely separate. So this is one sheet of metal that has been wrapped with a thin sheet of polymer clay, and then I've created the texture in that. This is another sheet, this is another sheet, and then the roof is another sheet. It comes up here, bends, and it helps to lock everything together. There's no bottom, doesn't need one. I have given it a step for a little bit of realism. All the clay I've used in this project is this Ecru colour, this sort of sand, buff colour, Ecru. And then I've gone over it with chalk pastel before I baked each section. And I made each section in its separate bit, coloured it, baked it, and then I brought it together and used more polymer clay in the back with some bacon bond to help stick it to the metal and to each other. And yeah, it was quite a job. I also created the foliage around here. That's the only bit that is in its own colour of polymer clay. So this is about 3 shades of green all sort of scrumbled together. And I created the little cottage name and twisted some thin worms of polymer clay together and made a sort of rope edging for it. Each tile is individually made. Everything has been textured, and I've done my best to plan the bricks so that where I have a half brick on the front face, you have a full brick on the next face. So this is the kind of setup I was thinking for this, to have the smaller, shorter bowl front right, and then the larger, slightly taller bowl back left. Pretty sure I want the cottage to be round about there. this is just a suggestion at the moment. This is just a roughing things out. So my thinking was I wanted to have the arbour create the entrance to the garden. You come along a path, cobble path, and then there is another path up through here which may well actually lead to some sort of patio area, I think. So I'm actually going to try and do some real hard landscaping on this project. To help me create the edges for the hard landscaping, I bought this edging strip. Now it is actually an awful lot thicker than I thought it was going to be and not desperately flexible. I'm sure there are other things you could use that would be better. It does explain why it was so expensive, but it is nice and deep. This stuff is not the stuff I thought it was going to be, and it's really tough. I wanted to make some nice curves with it, and I've been able to finally create that, but I had to pour a boiling kettle over it first, and yeah, it wasn't what I had in mind at all. However, it is now going to give me the shape that I want. Got some thin plant stick, and I'm going to cut myself some supports. They're going to sit below soil level, or should I say below the concrete level, but they're just going to give me enough to push out this curve to the shape I want while the concrete is setting. When I say concrete, I mean mortar. Not every crafty job is easy or goes simply or right the first time you do it. See there that I was just using the size of my arbour to work out where I needed to hold the path edging out to. Now I'm going to use a spoon to tamp this surface down, really tamp it down. That's going to help hold the wooden stays in place. It's going to help prevent any sinking. Using the other end, I can really put some pressure on the soil, really compact it. Now I've got a bucket full of clay sand, kiln dried sand, and I'm going to fill that void with the sand. That again will help everything hold its shape. Doesn't matter if you get a bit in the beds. What we're trying to prevent is the mortar cracking, just as you would with a normal full-size footpath. And now up on this garden we're going to use another piece to create a patio area. paths and patios as big or small as you want. And it's worthwhile just keep checking your set pieces every now and again. And I remember that I wanted to get some plants up around here, so now I'm adding extra bits. And remember, once this is done, this is going to be sitting up a bit higher. This is just there for positioning. Wow, I'm getting really rained on here. Oh, that's nice. It's kind of created a little moon, a little crescent moon, like that. Okay, it rained a lot and it did it for about half an hour. It's so cold. I sat in the shed while it did it. But before I got completely rained off, I did manage to finish marking out the paths and putting sand in as a soft base. Let's have a look. I'm going to start putting some plants in now, and that's just going to help firm everything up and help us understand the space a bit better. So here we are on the half moon patio, and as I say, that's where the suggestion of the house is going to sit, but it will be up at patio level when it's done. That gives me 2 planting pockets. I picked up this really sweet juniperus communis compressa at the local garden centre. It looks a little bit in trouble, but I understand that this is sort of like an autumn blush it's got on it, and then the new growth that's coming out is this sort of pretty silvery. That's rather nice. So the first job to do is take off all the weediness from the top. I don't want to go introducing that into my planting. And I'm almost going to treat this a bit like a bonsai. And I'm going to reduce soil from the top down. I'm not going to bare root this tree. I'm just looking for the point where the root base starts to flare out. But I can pull off any roots that are going in a weird direction, especially any that are trying to grow upwards. So all I've done there is reduce the height of the soil from the pot, which was up to about there. So I've gained all that trunk, and now it really looks like a little tree. It is a little tree, but now it really looks like one. So I can decide roughly where I might want to plant it. My second tree is considerably bigger, and it is a Chamaecyparis Elwood's Gold. Don't worry that I'm making the cottage mucky with my dirty hands. It's polymer clay, it will wash straight off. I got this really cute little pine in one of those Christmas decorations, you know, the one that they really insist on spraying with glitter for some reason, because yeah, plants don't need to grow or anything. But it was reduced, it was in an arrangement that was reduced to $2.99. I've already had a primula out of it that I've put somewhere. Now I've got this little pine tree which is adorable, and there's another shrubby thing as well, and a really nice galvanised bucket. So I was on a winner there. So when I place this tree, it's about making the two gardens work together. If I put it there, it sort of blocks everything. Could bring it to the front. That would give us a sense of perspective. We could put it here and help to define the width of the whole thing. I think it's going to work better over here. So I did the same thing again, I just reduced the height of the soil. I wanted to reveal as much of this little pine tree's trunk as I could. I think that's going to do us for part one of this video. It's getting very cold and I think it's going to start raining again. So what we've done is we've filled the pots, we have set out our hard landscaping, and we have started to put in our really structural plants. Next thing to do is put in the sort of herbaceous plants, the flowering things, and get those hard landscapes. That's going to be really exciting. That's the first time I've done that. Right, that's it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to rate, share and subscribe to me here on YouTube. And until next time, bye!